Do you find yourself struggling financially, even though you're working hard? Have you ever made a financial decision that backfired and left you starting from zero? Then this story is for you. Today, we dive into the life of Carlos, a man who had it all, lost everything in a single investment mistake, and then rebuilt his life through knowledge, grit, and financial discipline. The rise before the fall. Carlos wasn't born into wealth, but by his early 30s, he was doing well. He had a stable job, a modest apartment, and even managed to take annual vacations. Life was good, yet like many people with limited financial education, Carlos wanted more fast. He fell for a high-risk investment opportunity promoted by a friend. Promises of quick returns and passive income clouded his judgment. Without truly understanding the risks, Carlos poured his entire savings, over $40,000, into it. The collapse within months, the company went bankrupt. The investment was gone, just like that. No savings, no backup plan. Carlos found himself crushed emotionally and financially. Bills piled up, his credit cards maxed out. He even had to move out of his apartment and crash on his cousin's couch. He went from comfortable to desperate, nearly overnight. He considered taking out loans just to survive, but deep down he knew, if he didn't change his mindset, he'd end up broke again. The turning point. That's when Carlos made a critical decision. He wasn't going to stay a victim of his own ignorance. He picked up a used copy of The Richest Man in Babylon. Then Rich Dad Poor Dad. He realized something powerful. It wasn't the bad investment that ruined me. It was my lack of financial education. Carlos began studying finance like his life depended on it, because it did. Early lessons, practical takeaways. Never invest in what you don't understand. Carlos had blindly trusted a friend and flashy promises. Now, he started researching every financial term he didn't know. He watched YouTube videos on compound interest. He read blogs on risk management. Emergency funds are essential. He learned that even $1,000 saved could have changed everything. Without a cushion, he had no time or space to recover. Debt doesn't solve problems, it multiplies them. Carlos resisted taking new loans. Instead, he focused on cutting expenses and getting back on his feet the right way. Mindset shift. This wasn't about getting rich quick anymore. It was about never being this helpless again. Carlos's fall had shaken him to the core. But now, with each book, podcast, and video, he was rebuilding his mindset, brick by brick. He began journaling his goals. He wrote affirmations about abundance. He treated financial education like a second job. The man who once gambled with his future now respected money like a master craftsman respects his tools. Carlos's life had hit rock bottom, but his spirit hadn't. After realizing that financial ignorance was his true enemy, he committed to turning things around, not with luck or shortcuts, but with education and action. Immersing in financial education, Carlos treated learning like survival. Every morning, before his day job, he read at least 10 pages of a personal finance book. During lunch breaks, he listened to finance podcasts. At night, instead of watching TV, he studied topics like budgeting, compound interest, inflation, and asset allocation. He wasn't just consuming content, he was applying it. Building a bulletproof budget. One of the first things Carlos did was create a simple but powerful budget. He categorized his income and expenses into 3 buckets: essentials 50%, rent, food, transportation, financial goals 30%, debt repayment and savings, lifestyle 20%, entertainment, hobbies, dining out. This wasn't easy. At first, it meant cutting back on dinners with friends and skipping weekend getaways. But for the first time in his life, Carlos felt in control of his money. Each dollar had a job. Carlos's next move was to build an emergency fund. He started small, saving just $50 a week. Within 6 months, he had $1,200 in a high-yield savings account. That safety net gave him peace of mind and flexibility. At the same time, he tackled his debt using the debt avalanche method, paying off high-interest credit cards first while making minimum payments on others. Every time he cleared a balance, he celebrated, not with spending, but by increasing his savings rate. Investing with wisdom. Carlos didn't jump back into investing right away. He took his time. He started with books like The Intelligent Investor and learned the difference between speculation and long-term investing. Eventually, he opened a low-cost index fund account. He diversified across ETFs, avoided trendy get-rich-quick stocks, and focused on consistency. Even when the market dipped, he didn't panic. He'd learned from his past. Real investing is boring, disciplined, and patient. Mindset overhaul, practical growth. What truly changed Carlos wasn't just the money he saved, it was who he became. He stopped comparing himself to others. On social media, he stopped thinking of wealth as luck and started seeing it as a skill set. He surrounded himself with people who talked about investing, business, and financial independence. Carlos also built daily habits that reinforced his growth. He tracked every expense using a spreadsheet. He reviewed his financial goals every Sunday. He read one new book per month related to money or psychology. The man who once gambled his savings was now a student of wealth. Results start to show within a year. Carlos had paid off 80% of his debt, built an emergency fund, and started investing steadily. His confidence grew, not because he had more money, but because he finally understood how money worked. Carlos wasn't getting rich. He was getting strong. Carlos had laid the foundation. He'd gone from financial chaos to clarity. Now, it was time to build. But unlike before, he wasn't chasing fast returns or falling for hype. This time, he was playing the long game, from scarcity to strategy. After a year of disciplined budgeting, saving, and studying, Carlos had something he hadn't felt in years: momentum. He no longer lived paycheck to paycheck. He wasn't stressed every time a bill arrived. But instead of relaxing, he doubled down. Carlos developed a strategy: increase income, maximize savings rate, invest smarter, not riskier, picked up freelance work on weekends, financial proofreading, and virtual assistant gigs to boost his monthly income by 30%. Every extra dollar went toward investments or his emergency fund. Smart diversification. One of Carlos's biggest lessons from his past failure was not to put all his eggs in one basket. He diversified his portfolio: 60% in index funds S&P 500, total market ETFs, 20% in international exposure, 10% in REITs, real estate investment trusts, 10% in cash for opportunities or emergencies. No more crypto FOMO. No more hot stock tips from Twitter. Carlos followed a strategy backed by data, not emotion. Systems that run without emotion. Carlos automated everything. Investments happened on autopilot right after payday. Bills were scheduled. Spending was tracked weekly through an app synced with his bank. He also created a money routine. Every Sunday morning, Carlos reviewed his net worth, spending trends, and investment performance. He wasn't obsessed, he was informed, and this awareness gave him control. Lifestyle inflation. Not Carlos. As Carlos earned more, he avoided the biggest trap most people fall into: lifestyle inflation. He didn't upgrade to a luxury car. He didn't move to a fancier apartment. Instead, he saved 50% of every pay raise and used the rest for meaningful experiences, like taking his mom on a trip she always dreamed of. Carlos learned that real wealth isn't about how much you spend, it's about how much freedom you have. The power of consistency. There were no shortcuts, no big wins overnight. But after 3 years of consistent action, here's what Carlos had: a fully funded emergency fund, zero debt, over $40,000 invested, monthly passive income from dividends, a growing reputation as the finance guy in his circle. Friends started asking him for help. Some even offered to pay for advice. That's when a new idea sparked. What if he turned this knowledge into a career? Carlos had rebuilt his life from the ashes of a financial disaster, but what came next was even more powerful. He transformed not just his finances, but his identity. It started with small requests. Carlos, can you help me set up a budget? I don't understand this investment stuff. Can you explain ETFs to me? At first, he helped friends and family for free. But soon, word spread. His advice wasn't just helpful, it worked. People were getting out of debt, saving their first $1,000, investing with confidence. The birth of a new mission. Carlos realized that what had once been his greatest failure had now become his greatest asset. His painful past gave him credibility, and his journey gave him insight. He decided to get certified as a financial coach, investing time and money into turning his story into a service. He launched his own website, started posting finance tips on Instagram and YouTube, and hosted small workshops in his community center. The response was overwhelming. People were tired of financial jargon. They needed someone who had been there, someone real. Carlos was exactly that. From coaching to consulting in less than a year, Carlos transitioned from part-time freelancer to full-time financial consultant. He specialized in helping individuals and families get out of debt, create realistic budgets, understand investing without fear, build long-term wealth step by step. Steve didn't promise riches. He promised results through habits and strategy. His clientele grew, so did his income. But more importantly, so did his impact. The ultimate financial freedom. Carlos no longer worked just to pay bills. He worked because he loved empowering others. He traveled the world giving talks about financial literacy. He mentored young professionals who reminded him of his old self. And he never forgot the lessons that got him here. Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is freedom. Success isn't about luck. It's about systems, discipline, and mindset. Your worst financial mistake doesn't have to define your future. It can be the beginning of it. Carlos's story proves one thing. No matter how deep the hole, you can always climb out and come back stronger. He lost everything, but with humility, learning, and action, he built a life even better than before. If his story inspired you, do this right now. Like this video to help more people find hope. Subscribe to the Financial Freedom Hub for weekly videos like this. Comment below. What's one financial lesson you learned the hard way? And don't stop here. Watch our next video on how to create a bulletproof budget in 30 minutes or less. It might just change your life. Your financial freedom journey starts now. And just like Carlos, you've got everything you need, as long as you're willing to learn and take action.